So this conversation about major depressive disorder is primarily looking at what is a major depressive disorder and what populations are more affected by major depression disorder and some of the origins of major depression disorder. There are several triggers that can cause depression or depression episodes. Depression doesn't necessarily mean that someone has a chronic problem that's been going on for months. It could be a more singular event that's caused depression. You may have been or may be familiar with the term postpartum depression, which a woman goes through after sometimes after giving birth and goes through rapid change in body physiology and chemistry with a dramatic shift in hormones, and can really cause someone who is normally someone who doesn't have depression to go through a period of withdrawal and a feeling of life being out of control because of what has happened within the endocrine system hormonally. And episodic depression can also be related to a sudden change in one's life, a divorce, separation, after experiencing a trauma. We certainly are better educated today about veterans and how what at times is called PTSD can in part be a result of depression. And depression can be a part of PTSD. They're not exactly the same thing, but it's a result of an episode, of an experience, such as seeing some very unpleasant things or experiencing some very unpleasant things in combat, or being a witness to some very unpleasant things, or experiencing something unpleasant yourself, whether a person's a veteran or not a veteran. So it's a very costly disability. It's on the rise. Just as a side, the number one health condition affecting college students is mental health as a category, and depression is a big subset of a category of mental health. So it's not physical impairments that people come in with in terms of a healthcare complaint. It's related to anxiety and depression. And signs and symptoms, I think that's really important to know. We're going to be using the bottomly text in the older adult course in PTA 201. But if you notice someone just, and death of a loved one is another causative event. Losing a spouse. We're looking at people who have lost a lot of people around their age group, peers and friends. You think of someone who is perhaps in their 80s and have lost several siblings, have lost friends that they've known since high school, have lost people in their church community, and are feeling increasingly alone. I know my mother was experiencing some depression before she died, and that was a common theme that kept coming up. It's like, oh, another funeral. And, you know, you can just, over time, to kind of get numb to hearing that from a parent or someone you know well. But going to funerals is not pleasant, especially when your community is just getting smaller and smaller. And so depression is a health condition that does affect older adults in higher than average numbers, or those who have had experience of a lot of loss, such as a result of war or of genocide. And I know that sounds like a real shocking term to hear in 2019, but there are genocidal events happening as we speak throughout the world, in parts of the Middle East, for example, and even in parts of Asia, and possibly even, some could argue, some Central American countries, actually. So what are people experiencing? That kind of several symptoms, and these symptoms can come all at once. So you want to be aware of these: sadness, anxiety, fear, anger. And it's not just like short-term anger. It comes up over and over, and it can be some real unresolved anger that that person is experiencing because they're having a really hard time processing their day-to-day life um, and their toolbox in terms of strategies to manage anger is limited. The resources are just not there, or they're not able to, because they're in a depression episode, not able to access those resources, or it could be financial related. So PTs can refer clients to your appropriate professionals, and should, and you're part of that as being the eyes and ears of the PT to make that call to refer someone. First of all, to talk to the PT, to let them know about your thinking process, and the PT may very well want you to make that referral. Increasingly skilled nursing facilities do have access to social workers or trained counselors for older adults, for example, and hospitals have social workers, and larger health systems have social workers. But for those who go to private practice, it's important to know your network too for making appropriate referrals as well in your community. So you will encounter depression as a health condition. It won't be the first primary condition you're working with somebody for or with, but it can be a health condition that can interfere with meeting the goals of treatment. If that secondary health condition, that one that you're not treating, becomes really the primary health condition, which is limiting someone from attending therapy and doing their exercises and being overall compliant with the plan of care. So I think, it's being supportive. It's not being Pollyannish at all in terms of your humor. I want to emphasize that. Appropriate humor is, if something comes up that it's just an appropriate response to laugh, it's okay. I think that can actually be therapeutically effective, but it really is an art and a skill that novice practitioners shouldn't tool around with too much. In other words, if somebody's really having a serious health crisis related to depression, it's not time to crack a joke. But if something is striking you as funny, that that patient is showing that they're sharing your humor, then you want to capture that, because it can really actually kind of help people through depression episodes. Not alone. Medication is a real important part of treatment in many cases. Others, exercise is that thing that helps them more than anything else. And exercise does help with managing depression because of the endorphin release, because movement massages the neurological system, which is important. It can create synapses. Social activities create synapses and increasing production of healthy neurons, and those are things we really want to be happening. So movement is motion and lotion, not only for the orthopedic system but also for the neurological as well. So I think that's going to be it for now.